Hey, welcome everyone to Weekly Bible Study. My name is Patty Baker, and we are gathering around the ancient texts. These are scrolls that have been put together by human beings in what we know as the Bible. And as we are breaking down sometimes just a couple of verses in each study, we are trying to cultivate from the soil of the words wisdom that we can use in our modern day lives. I hope that these timeless truths that we're unwrapping here can be used in this ever-changing world for you. So as we open our minds and our hearts, may we connect with the Spirit so that we can have a fresh understanding of the text and how that can apply to our daily lives. Last week, that was a long study, folks. I struggled. Chapter 26 in the book of Acts. We are studying the book of Acts and coming to a close here in these last couple of chapters. But we're looking at Paul as he was giving his testimony to King Agrippa. Festus was around, the governor of Caesarea, and this Jewish king who came with his sister Bernice to pay honor to this new governor. And the governor's like, hey, I know you're a Jewish king. Help me out here. Because I got this guy that was left over from the last governor. He's been sitting in prison for a 3 years. And I don't know what to do with him. Now he says he wants to go up to Caesar. And I don't know. I don't even know how to write him up. Because I don't see that he's done anything wrong. And so now King Agrippa's like, hey, bring him out. I want to see him and I want to hear his story and I want to figure out where he's coming from. And so we learned last week, after Paul gave his testimony and all of these people who were hearing him in high places, governmental and military leaders, that not every conflict needs to be solved at the same level where it started. And Paul was stuck in a local system that was emotionally charged because of people being biased about their religion, their culture, their heritage, and Paul coming in with this new spiritual idea that was like, dude, you're wrecking the system here. And they were looking to kill him, the Jews were. So Paul said, hey, he recounted his life as a Pharisee, and he said, I want to go see Caesar. So moving the situation to Rome didn't avoid the truth about what was happening. It actually protected it. And that's what we talked about last week. He made the request and it was ultimately acknowledged. And now the governor of Judea, I should say, Festus, sent Paul to the emperor of the Roman Empire, who is Caesar Nero. And Paul had the right to make the request because he's a Roman. And the Jews were like, oh, really? You've been here for so long. We totally forgot that. For today, we're only going to look at two verses in chapter 27. And Paul is now being transported to Rome, Italy, of course. And he's a prisoner. So he's being transported as a prisoner. And of course, this is at Paul's request to have Caesar hear his case. So let's read these first couple of verses, and I'm going to break them down as we go. I think it's important to give a little backstory, and it helps us to dive in a little bit deeper into the next section of those verses. Here we go. Acts 27, verse 1. I'm reading out of the New International Version. I don't care what version you look at. You can pause this, take a look at it, download the Bible app. It's called YouVersion, Y-O-U version, and take a listen. Then come back here, and now you're fresh with these first couple of verses, and you can listen to them again with the backdrop of history and information that I'm breaking down for you. When it was decided that we would sail for Italy, there's plenty there. Let's stop. When it was decided that we would sail to Italy, who's writing this to say we? It is Luke. Luke wrote the book of Acts, and he also wrote the book of Luke, believe it or not. He was not Jewish, okay? So he was not a Jew, and he wasn't a Roman. So he carefully is recording Jewish customs, Roman procedures, and early Christian life to a much broader or wider audience. And I love reading the book of Luke because he comes from that perspective, because not all of us understand Jewish customs. Not all of us know about the Roman procedures at the time. And his writings nail down a lot of details that help us to better understand what was going on. Context, content, and culture is important when you're studying these ancient texts we know as collectively put together to call the Bible. Paul refers to Luke as the beloved physician. He calls him that over in Colossians 4:14, I think. Go fact check me. This helps explain also why Luke is so careful in his writings. He pays attention to detail. He's educated. He knows symptoms, sequences, his eyewitness accuracy. So he comes to the table with a skill set that's being transferred over into his writing. And so Luke writes with purpose. And he tells us early on that he has, when he's writing this book, that he's thoroughly investigated everything carefully that he was not even an eyewitness to. And he wrote in a very orderly account, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. So Acts isn't just some casual storytelling. It's researched history that's coming from Luke. Just as some backdrop, let's look at the we and how this is written. When it was decided that we would sail to Italy, not everybody, not all the we here is in jail. Paul's in jail. But these people who are with Paul are feeling that we, right? Because they're part of this group and they have stayed with Paul during this time. So you won't see the word we show up in Acts 21, starting in verse 18, over to here where we are in Acts 27, verse 1. Paul was arrested. He was imprisoned. He was examined. He was tried in a trial. So Luke is writing those accounts in Acts without we being listed and written there. And he's most likely writing Paul's recount of that, of what had happened, because Luke wasn't actually there. So now Paul's being transported to Rome by ship, and Luke and the others who are with Luke, ultimately with Paul, are back in the picture, okay? All those who are supporting Paul, who've stuck with him during this time. And so now they're going to get on this ship as well and go with Paul. So Luke mentions someone here that's going to be our focus tonight. The title here is The Power of We. And Aristarchus is going to be the focus tonight. It's easy to talk about Paul. It's easy to look at Luke. But I have never heard anyone give a message, teaching, preach about Aristarchus. And I think he is such an important person tonight that we are going to look at, or today, whenever you're hanging out here with me. So I want to dive into these Macedonians, who are Greek-speaking people, that Macedonia at the time was a specific Greek region. Classical Greece had its own history, and this is where Aristarchus is from. So let's read on. Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment. We'll look at Julius next week in a little bit more detail, but Julius is part of the imperial regiment. The imperial regiment was a very elite Roman military unit. They reported directly to the emperor, or emperor meaning the ruler of the empire. And this is a high status division of the Roman army. It was entrusted to very sensitive duties that were personal to the emperor. So this included important prisoners that were being imported into Rome to be tried. So this was not Julius Caesar. This was Julius, who is part of an elite Roman army unit called the Imperial Regiment. So let's read on. We boarded a ship in Adramyttium, about to sail for ports along the coast of the province of Asia, and we put out to sea. So this ship from Adramyttium, if you will, depending upon how you're translating the Greek here. This ship that's sailing here, this is its regular ports of stop along the coast of Asia Minor. This explains why Paul's ship is making all of these stops that we're going to look at next week before heading west, because it was common during this time that these regional vessels that were not ocean crossing ships going to Italy, okay, that they would travel along the coastal route. Paul did not start out on some luxury ship, folks. That was just bound straight to Rome. So he boarded a working vessel that was working that coastline and stopping at various ports. So as it's moving from port to port, people are getting on, cargo's getting on, cargo's getting off, people are getting off. And so Luke and the rest of we are traveling now because they know that Paul's going to Rome, and they are supporting that as part of the mission work. So this ship from Adramyttium would regularly sail along this coast of Asia Minor. That explains why Paul's ship stops so often. So sailors, my history lesson for you, based upon my independent study, is that sailors had no navigation tools during this time for any sort of major oceanic travel. So they didn't have ships at the time that would go across the Atlantic, go across the Pacific. There was no compass. There was no longitude. There was a little bit of latitude, if you will. It was limited based upon hugging the coastlines, using known ports that were there, and staying within the seasonal windows. And we have here this ship that anybody could get on and get off, and cargo. But the Imperial Regiment was using a place where they would put prisoners as they were sending them or transporting them back and forth to Rome. So from the top, verse 1, we boarded a ship from Adramyttium, about to sail for ports along the coast of the province of Asia, and we put out to sea. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us. Okay, we don't know anybody else who's here. Paul, the prisoner, going to Rome. Luke, the one writing the story, saying we, right, the account. And Luke specifically names Aristarchus, this Macedonian from Thessalonica. It's where we have an understanding when Paul's in jail that he's writing letters to different places he's been, and that's where we get the book of Thessalonians, when he writes that letter to Thessalonica. So Aristarchus, Macedonian from Thessalonica, he is a Greek. He was a Greek. So that means he was a non-Jew, also known as a Gentile. Thessalonica, also Thessaloniki as we know today, major city that Paul had ministered in, loved the people there. They had great spiritual awakening. And Aristarchus is a close companion to Paul. He is mentioned throughout the book of Acts. Luke brings him up over in Acts 19. We've already studied that. He is seized by a mob in Ephesus during some riot. And this tells us that he's not just hiding in the shadows. He is publicly out there with Paul. He's sharing the risk. We also see Aristarchus over in Acts 20, verse 4, where he travels with Paul as part of a diverse team of men. And I would also suspect women with them, although they're not noted here. Again, culture, context, and content. But we see where he's traveling, not just in the region. Hey, I'm in Thessalonica and I'll stay here with you guys, you know. So he's willing to join the group and move with purpose for this mission that Paul has. And obviously Aristarchus has as well. We see him also here, where he's on the ship with Paul and Luke and who knows who all else, and heading to Rome. So this is significant about Aristarchus. He's not a prisoner, and yet, like Luke, he chooses to go. He stayed when it got dangerous because he's there now, and he's traveled even when there's no prestige for him to be traveling. And I also want to say this. He's associated with Paul. This means arrest and risk of death. So maybe Aristarchus didn't lead publicly, but he is consistently present throughout this these many years where Paul is on this mission to tell as many people as they can that you don't have to be a Jew. Just understand the teachings of Jesus, who he is, and why he died, and connect with the great Spirit, the Holy Spirit. You can connect with God through the Spirit. So Aristarchus matters here. And thus, Luke's acknowledging him. And oh, by the way, Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us. It's a pointed statement, I think. It matters. It matters to Luke, or else Luke would not have mentioned him. But Aristarchus represents something that I think is valuable for us today. It represents quiet faithfulness. He's not the speaker. He's not the decision maker, but he's fully committed to the vision and the purpose and the mission of what these men are doing, being led by Paul. Aristarchus wasn't famous. He wasn't famous for much of anything, not preaching, but he was known for staying. He's not even popular today. We don't even talk about him in churches. So some people advance missions and goals by going where others don't, or wouldn't, or can't. So this "we" is powerful in these first two verses. When Luke says "we," it matters. And it means the storm doesn't just happen to Paul. It happened to a group of faithful people who had no authority of the outcome, but stayed present in it anyway. That's a powerful lesson for us today, because most faithfulness in relationships, workplaces, communities doesn't look heroic. It's quiet. It looks like continuing to walk with someone when it would be easier to cut sling load and go, when it would be much easier to step back. And Aristarchus reminds us that it matters when we stay. Now, don't be foolish in following those who are not leading in a way that is honorable and righteous. But to stay when no one else is clapping and no one else is listening and there's no reward for it, but you know that you know that you know that what is real and true is worth being committed to, there's a level of quietness there. And I love Aristarchus because he models what every healthy organization, every healthy family, every healthy community, every healthy system, every healthy church needs. People who remain grounded when things get uncertain. And people who don't abandon the mission because it gets a little uncomfortable. And people who are willing to share the risk, not just the reward. We have someone here on the ministry team. Her name is Selena, and she is our Aristarchus. She is grounded. She doesn't get overly emotional about anything. She doesn't abandon things when times get tough over here and we're up against deadlines and things are happening in the ministry where we're like, oh, what are we going to do next? Where's the funding coming from for the things that we're doing in the communities across the country here in the U.S.? And so there's a lot going on. She is our Aristarchus, and she is faithful. She's the encourager. She stays grounded, and she keeps us calm in the storm, if you will. Faithfulness is a great word for Selena, and it's also a great word for Aristarchus, because faithfulness is measured by who stays when the journey gets hard, for sure. And I think titles will come and go, but influence shifts from one person to another. Oh, this influencer today, this influencer tomorrow, those influences shift. But faithfulness is measured by those who stay. And when you are looking to partner in whatever goal or plan or purpose that you have, I don't care what it is. You're looking for marriage. You're looking for a personal trainer. You're looking for a team to put together for a mission or a goal or a business. You're looking for somebody to work with you in the community, in politics, in the church setting. You need to have the Aristarchus, the Aristarchus in the room. Because in leadership today, presence is more powerful than position. Because that steadiness becomes powerful in and of itself. You don't have to be the decision maker to be dependable and to be an intricate person on the team. I think a lot of people think, oh, if I'm not the leader, then it's not that important. No, you are that important. And you don't have to be the loudest voice to be the steadiest one on the team. And that's who Aristarchus here. So look for the Aristarchus in your life. Those who remain steady and faithful. Encourage them, love them, acknowledge them for who they are and how they remain steady and calm in the midst of those storms. And if you are an Aristarchus, we love you. And you may be an Aristarchus here and a leader in something else, right? So acknowledge yourself, that you have a position of power due to your faithfulness and your steadiness that you bring to the group of people you're with, in your family, whether it's, in your home, in healthcare, workplace, in school, that on a team, you are needed, just because you may not be the loudest one in the room. So until we meet next week, I pray that you will take a look at these next several verses. I think we're going to go probably through verse 12. So it'll be Acts 27, verses 3 through 12. We have got climate meeting coastline, and it's causing a crisis. So until we meet again, love God, love others, love yourself.